In the midst of a mundane and uneventful existence, strange and horrific beings hide beyond our detection. Hello and welcome to Nightmare Masterclass. My name is David Stockdale. I'll be your host on this excursion into the dark unknown. In this installment, I'll be taking a look at a strange web series known as Gemini Home Entertainment by an artist named Remy Abode. The work presents itself as a disparate group of videos all distributed by the same company, the titular Gemini Home Entertainment. The aesthetic of these videos is decidedly retro, evincing the feel of public access television. But underneath the surface of these retro videos lies a bizarre and mysterious realm of untold horrors. One might well draw comparisons to another series with a similar aesthetic, Local 58. You might recall I covered Local 58 on the channel a while back. While I do feel there is a debt owed to Local 58 here, it is nonetheless the case that Gemini Home Entertainment merits its own serious analysis. The reason for that will become more clear over the course of this video. For now, I'll just say that Gemini Home Entertainment's use of this aesthetic in particular evinces a pervasive sense of anxiety, and it's this quality that I feel merits a broader discussion. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I strongly urge you to do so. At the time of this video's release, Gemini Home Entertainment has about 19,000 subscribers. Let's see if we can bump up their numbers a bit. I should add that the project itself has a Patreon page. If you enjoy this series and have some disposable income, you might want to consider becoming a patron. Now, I would also urge you to watch the videos for yourself prior to watching my analysis, because I think my ideas about this particular work are not necessarily going to be the same thing that you take away from it. I really do enjoy hearing other people's takes, so please share your ideas in the comments if you're so inclined. Now, where to begin? Well, the first thing I should note is that Gemini Home Entertainment is referred to as a video distribution company on the channel's About page. So it stands to reason that each of these videos has been distributed by Gemini for one reason or another. The video topics are fairly diverse, ranging from world's weirdest animals, the very first video, to home invasion help, the topic of the very latest video on the channel. Usually there's some kind of ominous twist. Let's see if we can make sense of what's going on in this series. The first video in the series, World's Weirdest Animals, came out on November 17, 2019. It is comprised of several segments. Each segment highlights a different animal native to certain counties in rural Minnesota. Additionally, some factoids about the animal are included, but things go a little awry as the video progresses. For starters, I think it's interesting that this video focuses on rural Minnesota. Rural settings have been fodder for all kinds of folk tales and scary stories. Minnesota in particular feels like an apt choice. The rural Midwest is not all that prominent in American pop culture. The film Fargo is one of the only major ones I can think of. The focus on a rural setting lends a kind of mystique to the whole production. Rural Minnesota in particular is the kind of place that one doesn't really think about unless, you live there. The first animal is the greater prairie chicken, native to Wilkin County, Minnesota. The description reads, native to central North America, greater prairie chickens are well known for their prominent air sacs and protruding ear-like feathers. In addition, the video states, these birds often engage in lekking, a form of mating ritual. The males utilize their air sacs to impress females. Note the scientific manner in which this information is presented. The video is very clearly crafted to make it appear as though it's intended for a grade school science class. The video gives similar factoids regarding the burrowing owl. It should be noted that conservationists are working to ensure that both of these species do not become endangered. According to American Bird Conservancy, greater prairie chicken populations declined to near extinction over the past century, mainly due to habitat loss as native prairie was converted to farmland. Loss of genetic diversity, pesticides, and collisions with man-made structures also pose threats. The noble burrowing owl faces similar threats. According to the Burrowing Owl Conservation Network, the greatest threat to burrowing owls is habitat destruction and degradation caused primarily by land development and ground squirrel/prairie dog control measures. Despite their protected status, burrowing owls are often displaced and their burrows destroyed during the development process. The natural lifespan of the burrowing owl is 6 to 8 years. Burrowing owls are also at risk of predation from coyotes, birds of prey, and feral cats and dogs. Because of an increase in urban and suburban sprawl, hazards are now consisting of automobiles as well. Now, I'm unclear on the status of Animal 3. This video builds suspense first by establishing a format, namely, it features a series of weird animals, yet one would be hard-pressed to say that chickens are all that weird. It might be fair to say that this dissonance is the first indicator that things aren't what they seem when it comes to Gemini Home Entertainment. The video states that the greater prairie chicken dives into the snow to make itself warmer, as though this factoid constitutes a weird characteristic. It's almost as though the writers of the video were struggling to get enough content to fill their quota of weird animals. This is an understandable conundrum considering that the setting is rural Minnesota, an almost quintessentially mundane place. This is not a value judgment on my part, but rather a cultural association that I believe the work is offering commentary on. Thus we see an emergent theme: banality, a distinct lack of interesting qualities. This, combined with the video's pleasing tunes, establishes an uncanny sort of calmness. When I first watched the video, I noted, I feel like I'm getting buttered up for something. As the music stops, the third segment establishes that the animal in question is native to everywhere, which of course broadens the scope of the ensuing horror. Additionally, there is a subtle change in format between the way Animals 1 and 2 are presented as opposed to Animal 3. Animals 1 and 2 are referred to in the singular, greater prairie chicken, burrowing owl. Animal 3, however, is wood crawlers. One might write this off as a simple formatting error, a meaningless inconsistency. However, this detail may well be telling in consideration of just how wood crawlers are described and subsequently depicted in this video. It almost seems to me that wood crawlers are some kind of collective entity. And, they're everywhere, so that's fun. Found all over North America, these animals are excellent hunters, being able to tread most terrain without making a sound. So they're predators and they're virtually undetectable. Wonderful. Their preferred nesting locations are inside the homes of large families, where large swarms can adapt easier. Notably, the word preferred is misspelled. It's missing an R. That's probably just a typo, but it's worth indexing for now. And of course, this raises the question, what does adapt mean in this context? You will hear screaming. They stole their voices. Burn the bodies, lest they stand up again. Nature's mockery. A creature appears in the laundry room. What follows next is best witnessed firsthand. So what do we make of this? It would seem that wood crawlers are ungodly creatures, the likes of which haven't been witnessed by humans since time immemorial. They have the ability to mimic humans in a way that strikes us as uncanny. Not only this, but it would seem that they prey on humans. But this is an insufficient answer. Would it be too literal to question the manner in which this information has been presented to us? Why start off with unremarkable animals such as the chicken and the owl? What exactly is the purpose of this material? Is it to educate, as the format ostensibly suggests? At the level of our analysis, we can note how the format helps build suspense and ultimately culminates in horror. The use of peaceful music and mundane animals helps establish a tension within the work between the root procedural format of your run-of-the-mill educational video and the horrific contents that lie within. Pauses that last just a bit too long work in service of this horror as well. But it's worth asking if this work is a sort of one-off pastiche done on a lark, or conversely, an attempt at something much larger. I invite you to consider the possibility that the endangerment of animals relates to an emergent theme within the series. Let's keep that in mind because it will become increasingly relevant. Additionally, wood crawlers may well not be as alien to us as one might expect based on an initial viewing of this video. After all, humans are predators. In a way, hunters can be said to steal the voices of the animals they prey upon. For instance, think about the duck call, which mimics the sound of a duck in order to lure the animals into the vicinity of the hunter. Perhaps the world's weirdest animal has been man all along. The second video in the series was released on November 24th, 2019. The video relays storm safety tips, brought to you by Burrowing Technologies. The company name referenced here is something worth scrutinizing. It would appear the producer of these videos has a penchant for dropping the R in various words. See, if you add an R to the end of this name, it spells harbinger. A harbinger is a signal or indicator that means something is approaching, as in the harbinger of a storm, or perhaps even the harbinger of doom. Ostensibly, the video is informational. It's intended to tell you what to do in the case of a severe storm. Part 1 is all about preparation. Step 1 is innocuous. It entails the reinforcement of your home. Step 2 seems to be native advertising for the company's very own early warning system. How the system works is not explained, although I would like to note the system's name, the Albedo alarm. Albedo is a scientific term used to refer to the measurement of the diffuse reflection of solar radiation out of the total solar radiation. A number of factors can affect the Earth's albedo measurement, including the presence of water, trees, and clouds, but man-made factors such as the presence of black carbon in the atmosphere have an effect as well. In fact, black carbon is a bigger contributing factor to the melting of the polar ice caps in the Arctic than carbon dioxide. And this is precisely because of black carbon's effect on the Earth's albedo. In consideration of this fact, it is curious that the name of an early warning system in the series is the Albedo alarm. Note the text that appears when Step 2 is introduced. This will allow you to know beforehand if a storm or other danger is approaching your home. It would seem that there is some kind of commentary going on here with respect to the climate and, more broadly, humanity's impact on the environment. In Step 3, the video urges you to create a storm bunker. Additionally, they suggest for you to purchase a shortwave radio. Yet again, they suggest a particular radio manufactured by, you guessed it, Burrowing Technologies. The stirring up of paranoia for the purposes of commercial gain appears to be at least one of the themes in this video. Strangely, the video warns you to turn on the radio only in the case of an emergency. However, the text in this portion briefly changes. For a moment it reads, "Only turn on radio in the event of the emergency." It would appear that the producers of this video have a particular event in mind, the emergency. Part 2 of the video entails what to do when the storm hits. The video instructs you to go to the bunker. Strangely, the video goes on to say, "Your home does not belong to you now." A number of similarly disconcerting messages appear on the screen. And then, well, Storm Safety Tips clearly evokes the very real terror people felt during the Cold War when the US and the Soviet Union were ramping up tensions, and the threat of an all-out nuclear war was palpable. I don't think the true impact of the Cold War on people's psyches during this time has been fully accounted for. In many ways, we still operate based on narratives established in this historical period. During this time, so-called fallout shelters became prevalent, along with public service announcements and educational films that instructed people on what to do in the event of a nuclear attack. Yet, in the case of Gemini Home Entertainment, the threat is not a man-made technological terror. Rather, it's a storm. The work codes the threat in naturalistic terms so as to prime the audience for a certain purpose. It's not entirely clear at this point what that purpose is, but it is safe to say that the threat referenced in the two videos we've watched thus far is not human. Although it is worth asking what the significance of this threat is, specifically in terms of its metaphorical potential. Is this just a creepy video series that one puts on late at night after perhaps consuming an edible? Or is it striving for something more in the way of social commentary? I think we're starting to see hints at the latter. Recall the two animals referenced in World's Weirdest Animals, the greater prairie chicken and the burrowing owl. There's a distinct thematic symmetry here. These animals' habitats are being destroyed by a threat they can't possibly understand. In many cases, their homes literally do not belong to them anymore. To top it off, this very threat was precipitated by the appearance of lights in the distance. That is to say, human civilization approaching ever closer until finally industrial development wipes out the animal's habitat. The third video was released on December 5th, 2019. The video begins with a short intro containing the text Geneva Production Company. A bit of stylized text appears. It reads, "The Deep Blue." It would appear this is yet another educational video. This time, we're exploring the depths of the ocean. Our ocean is full of mystery and wonder. I'm sure this bodes well for us. As the video proceeds, a school of fish appear on the screen. A series of aquatic factoids appear on the screen along with other various aquatic animals. The messages become more disconcerting. The real danger of the ocean is not its wildlife, but the habitat itself. The music slowly fades as the screen becomes dark. The hum of the video gives way to a distinct growling. We then get a shot of the Marianas Trench, which the film notes is the deepest place on Earth. A diagram of the trench is displayed, along with something called the Demisia Tunnel. Demisia means quit or resignation in Romanian. The depth of this tunnel is unknown. Here's where things go a bit off the rails. So, what's going on here? We are taught from an early age that the ocean is so very large and many of its inhabitants have yet to be discovered. The work is very clearly exploiting this understanding of the ocean as a mysterious place in order to instill horror. That much is clear. There's a distinct combination of pop science and, well, perhaps it might be fair to say eldritch horror at this point. The creature that dwells within the Marianas Trench, the place where it is said that nothing can live, is certainly unlike any other sea creature I'm aware of. So what's with this tunnel? The so-called Demisia Tunnel is a fictional addition to the well-known Marianas Trench. The basic expository way in which earlier elements are presented to the viewer as matters of fact lends an air of credence to latter parts in which, for instance, the Demisia Tunnel is presented to us. Never mind that the facts themselves are sometimes wrong. That's not the point. The point is that there are beings that exist deep within the ocean, beyond our detection. Recall the name of the entity behind this video, Geneva Production Company. Is there any significance to this? When you consider the work's conspicuous use of the term albedo in the previous video, it makes sense to try and draw parallels to the outside world here as well. I would be remiss not to consider the possibility that the work is alluding to the Geneva Conventions, a set of treaties and protocols that serve as the basis for international law with respect to the humane treatment of soldiers during war. If we assume the Geneva Conventions are indeed what the work is alluding to, it would seem to further implicate humans in the broad scope of history as the definite subject of inquiry, which admittedly seems counterintuitive based on the work's tendency to rely on bizarre, perhaps even supernatural beings as the horrific contents that constitute the resolution of the work's general formula. There's a distinct tension within the work between threats that appear to originate in a naturalistic manner and, contrarily, that which is implicated at the level of subtext, which is to say, the notion that humans are in fact the cause of such horror for other animals. Here it is necessary to broaden the discussion. With the proliferation of works in the vein of Local 58, a new subgenre has emerged. The most common term I've heard in reference to such works is analog horror. What might we say constitutes a work of analog horror? Well, defining a genre certainly isn't an exact science, but it's clear that in the case of analog horror, retro aesthetics have something to do with it. Analog is a term that exists in opposition to digital. Specifically, analog technology uses some physical property of a medium in order to create a continuous signal. Conversely, digital technologies use discrete values, the precision of which is determined by how many samples are recorded in a given time frame. Purists of various artistic mediums, including filmmaking, music, and photography, will tell you that analog technology is superior. Analog is often romanticized, due in part to its association with certain time periods and well-known musicians and directors, while proponents of digital technology sing the praises of its ease of use and versatility. The adoption of digital is already nearly ubiquitous. Eventually, it stands to reason that analog technology will only really be employed by eccentric hobbyists and hipster fetishists. What's important here is not so much the precise distinction between analog and digital technologies, but rather the mood created by emulating the existing technology of a particular time. In the case of a work like Gemini Home Entertainment, it's worth asking why one might attempt to emulate the texture of a particular analog technology, such as, for instance, the VHS tape. VHS tapes were prevalent at a time when this technology was basically optimal. They have long since become outmoded, and yet the aesthetics of VHS, the strategic employment of artifacts, the elaborate attempts to emulate a grainy texture, these things are all incredibly common, especially when it comes to works of horror. Grainy VHS videos give the impression that one is watching something that very well could have been lost to time. works of analog horror emulate a sense that one is interacting with some kind of relic. But is this merely a gimmick? Has it become tired? Is it something we should roll our eyes at? It's admittedly difficult at times not to adopt this attitude, especially as a kind of critic or commentator on works of this kind. However, I'd argue that there's something deeply effective about the use of analog aesthetics in this manner, particularly when combined with two other notable qualities present in this series. That is, material that is ostensibly educational or instructional, and subtle textual clues that seem to implicate the ultimate fate of humanity as a topic worth ruminating about. At this stage, it makes sense to ask if there's some kind of connection here between these initial videos such that perhaps we can deduce the makings of a plot. I can't really say for sure, but I'm beginning to get the sense that there's at least a recurring theme. Gemini Home Entertainment doesn't make videos for entertainment purposes, at least not within the fictional universe in which this media exists and is presumably disseminated for public consumption. Rather, the company's purpose seems to be to instill a certain kind of anxiety. Each of the 3 videos we've covered thus far elicits a sense that things are not going to be okay, and there's not all that much we can do about it. Maybe no amount of preparation really would have sufficed to deal with these things that exist beyond our awareness. This anxiety, it's a mood. It's not meant to be taken literally, or at least I don't think it is. Rather, I would argue that it's meant to approximate, among other things, the very real terror that animals experience in the wild when humans encroach upon their territory. As I briefly referenced earlier, the series has a formula, at least in the videos I've covered thus far. It transfigures this pervasive anxiety and places it onto some kind of being or entity. In World's Weirdest Animals, it's these things called wood crawlers. In Storm Safety Tips, it's some indescribable danger associated with chimes and light which results in your home not belonging to you anymore. This pervasive anxiety can be boiled down to something that constitutes a very real concern. It's the type of thing I'd venture to guess keeps a lot of smart people up at night. The effects of climate change are already observable. The impending catastrophes will be devastating. So too does economic crisis result in people quite literally losing their homes. In either case, the variable we must isolate is quite obvious. It's humanity itself. This whole thing called civilization has gone off the rails, and no one is in the driver's seat. And as much as we'd like to think, hey, we'll figure it out, that's what people do. We're problem solvers, right? It's getting more and more difficult to put faith in that sentiment if one is paying attention. I mean, I put a video out a while back where I tried to convince doomers that a better world is possible. But I would be a fool not to acknowledge that some of the challenges they identify as insurmountable really do seem insurmountable. It's bleak, but it would feel inauthentic to just totally avoid talking about it. It's only by staring into the abyss and coming to terms with the reality of our present moment that I think we will be able to come up with effective solutions. A better world is possible, but we do need works such as Gemini Home Entertainment, which help us come to grips with what lies within the abyss. If you're interested in seeing more analysis of Gemini Home Entertainment, let me know in the comments. Prior to wrapping up, I just wanted to talk about the current status of my channel. About a month ago, I made the announcement that I would be doing something of a soft rebrand to convey a more accurate picture of the broad scope of things I cover on Nightmare Masterclass. You'll notice my banner has changed to indicate that I cover theory, criticism, commentary, and analysis. I also noted that I would be streaming a bit more. If you watch my channel consistently, you'll notice that the only thing that's really changed in terms of my content is the fact that I'm streaming more regularly and disaggregating various segments from my streams. A certain percentage of my subscribers seem to have taken exception to the way I frame certain topics. That is to say, they expect Nightmare Masterclass to cover horror content exclusively. So when they see a video that doesn't fit into that box, there's an averse reaction. I don't really blame anybody for this. Maybe I could have handled the announcement better, but I don't really think that would have made a huge difference. Anyway, I feel like I should let you know that I'm hemorrhaging subscribers by the hundreds. And I'm concerned that I may have fallen out of favor with the algorithm as a result. Honestly, I'm not really too worried about it. I think I can take the hit. Hopefully this will pan out in the long run because I can't really anticipate what people want or what the algorithm is going to pick up, and it would be weird if I tried. If you've watched this channel consistently, you of course know that I've always covered a broad array of topics. And I tend to have a certain socio-political lens in the course of my analysis. That's literally been the case since the beginning of this channel. So really what's changed is some of the branding and the fact that I am streaming a bit more. But rest assured that I will still be doing edited content, in particular long-form analysis such as this. And YouTube is a fickle platform. It's frankly not something I can rely on in terms of consistent revenue. With that said, it would be especially meaningful at this time if you join me on patreon.com/Nightmare Masterclass. You can join for as little as $1 a month. That wraps it up for this installment of Nightmare Masterclass. Thank you for watching, and good night.